The crystalline fleet of the Vexteri hegemony cut through the darkness of space, like shards of frozen starlight, their perfect geometric formation, a testament to 1,000 years of uncontested dominance. High Admiral K'Zoth stood on the command deck of the dreadnought, Unity's perfection, his 4 arms clasped behind his back in a pose that had become famous throughout their conquered territories. "Status report," he commanded, his translator crystal converting his natural clicks and whistles into the standard fleet language. Junior Sensor Officer Valor's carapace shimmered with pride as she delivered her report. The fleet's quantum harmonics are operating at 99.998% synchronization. High Admiral, all 812 ships maintain perfect formation within 0.003 degrees of variance. K'Zoth's mandibles twitched in satisfaction. Such precision was expected of the hegemony's Grand Armada, but it still pleased him to hear it stated aloud. Their crystal ships were the perfect expression of technological evolution, pure, flawless, and utterly superior to the crude metal constructions used by lesser species. "New contact, High Admiral," Senior Sensor Officer Tezcan announced, his voice carrying the slight harmonic overtone of excitement. "Detecting unusual energy signatures from the star system designated Exploration Target 2847. K'Zoth glided forward, his anti-gravity harness humming softly. The holographic display crystallized before him, showing an unremarkable yellow star with 9 orbital bodies. Analysis. Primitive radio waves, mostly, Tezcan reported, his upper arms dancing across the crystal control matrix, while his lower arms maintained stability positions. Artificial in origin, but chaotic and unstructured. We're also detecting scattered heat signatures consistent with early industrial development. Science Officer Xetal joined them at the display, her crystalline augments catching the light. Fascinating. The radio emissions show signs of both amplitude and frequency modulation. Most species standardize on one method before reaching this level of solar system presence. These beings appear to be inefficient in their development. K'Zoth felt a familiar thrill of anticipation. In their 1,000-year history of expansion, the hegemony had encountered many young species. Some had been incorporated into their perfect society. Others had needed to be removed. The process always began the same way. "Launch standard first contact protocols," he ordered. "Prepare the welcome fleet." His officers responded with perfect synchronization, their movements as choreographed as the dance of stars. A single scout ship detached from the formation, its crystal lattice structure refracting starlight in complex patterns that proclaimed its heritage to any species advanced enough to read them. "High Admiral," Xetal said suddenly, her voice carrying an unusual harmonic of confusion. "I'm detecting something unusual about these radio emissions. There are patterns that suggest—" "Yes," K'Zoth prompted, noting how his science officer's natural bioluminescence had dimmed slightly, a sign of deep concentration among her subspecies. "The signals contain mathematical constants we haven't encountered before, and some of the heat signatures, they don't quite match our models for industrial development. It's as if what, Science Officer? As if they're deliberately inconsistent, but that would imply—" She trailed off, her augments pulsing with uncertainty. K'Zoth dismissed her concerns with a gesture of his upper right arm. "Your dedication to analysis is noted, Science Officer. But we have seen this pattern 12 times before. A young species, recently achieved spaceflight, still clinging to multiple technological paths, instead of following the one true way of crystal tech. They will learn, or they will perish." The scout ship accelerated toward its target, its crystal drive leaving a trail of quantum probability waves that would have been beautiful to anyone who could perceive them. Behind it, the main fleet waited in perfect formation, their crystalline hulls humming in harmony with the universe. None of them realize they were about to encounter humanity's first line of defense, and their own worst nightmare. Captain Michael Mad Dog Anderson stood at the viewport of the UES Thermopylae, his weather-worn face illuminated by the distant sun. The massive observation window, spanning 20 feet of reinforced transparent aluminum, offered an unobstructed view of the approaching alien vessel. Its crystalline structure caught and reflected starlight like a diamond suspended in the void. "They're certainly not trying to hide," Lieutenant Commander Jessica Hayes remarked, her voice carrying a note of professional amusement. She tapped the holographic display hovering above the Combat Information Center's main console. "No stealth systems, no electronic countermeasures. They're broadcasting their position on every frequency we can detect." Anderson's lips curved into a slight smile. "Pride before the fall. XO, what's your assessment?" Hayes gestured to the three-dimensional projection of the alien scout ship. "Their hull structure is unlike anything in our database, but our quantum resonance scans are picking up some interesting vulnerabilities. Look at these intersection points where the crystal lattices meet." Lieutenant James Ghost Walker, the ship's tactical officer, leaned forward in his station. His dark eyes reflected the holographic data streams as he added his analysis. "Those junctions are transmitting some sort of coherent energy pattern. If we could disrupt that flow—" He trailed off, his fingers already dancing across his console's interface. "They're hailing us," Communications Officer Lisa Echo Reynolds announced, broadcasting on 17 different frequencies, each using a different mathematical base. "Clever. It's a first contact protocol, designed to demonstrate their technological sophistication." Anderson exchanged knowing glances with his bridge crew. The aliens' attempts at intimidation were having the opposite effect. Every transmission revealed more about their systems and capabilities. "The computers finished translating their message," Reynolds continued. Well, sir, it's a standard ultimatum. They're demanding our immediate surrender and integration into something called the Vex-Terry hegemony." "How thoughtful of them to ask so nicely," Anderson said dryly. He turned to combat engineer Emily Wrench Rodriguez, who had been unusually quiet. "What's on your mind, Chief?" Rodriguez's eyes never left her engineering station's displays. "Their entire ship is one big resonance chamber, Captain. The crystal structure, the energy patterns, it's all connected in perfect harmony. Beautiful engineering, really." She looked up, a predatory grin spreading across her face. "But you know what happens to crystal when you hit just the right frequency." "I believe we do," Anderson agreed. He squared his shoulders, years of combat experience evident in his stance. "Lieutenant Walker, is your little surprise ready?" Walker's console emitted a soft chime of confirmation. "Emperor package primed and ready, sir. First wave of electronic warfare suites are spun up. They won't know what hit them." "Ms. Hayes, status of the backup plans." "Plans B through F are prepped and standing by, sir," the XO reported crisply. "Engineering reports all systems nominal, including the primitive chemical thrusters they're so kindly ignoring." Anderson nodded, taking one last look at the gleaming alien vessel through the viewport. Its perfect crystalline structure reminded him of the Christmas ornaments his daughter had loved to hang on their tree. Some things were beautiful precisely because they were fragile. "Send our response, Ms. Reynolds," he ordered. "Keep it simple." "Aye, sir. Transmitting now." The Thermopyla's reply was a single radio pulse, an old Earth message in simple binary. "Thanks, but no thanks. Tactical, you may begin the dance." Walker's fingers flew across his console. "Emperor package deploying, sir. Electromagnetic pulse modified to their exact crystal resonance frequency in 3, 2, 1. The space between the ships lit up with an invisible storm of electronic warfare. The real battle was about to begin, and the aliens were about to learn why humanity had survived every attempt at conquest throughout its long and violent history. The dance of the fireflies was about to become a dance of fire. The Emperor package hit the Vex-Terry scout ship like divine judgment. a precisely calibrated electromagnetic pulse that transformed the vessel's perfect crystalline structure into its own worst enemy. Lieutenant Walker's fingers danced across his tactical console, conducting a symphony of electronic warfare that would have brought tears to a composer's eyes. Direct hit on their sensor arrays, Walker reported, his voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through his system. Their quantum detection grid is experiencing cascade failures across all bands. Captain Anderson leaned forward in his command chair. "Ms. Rodriguez, how are our resonators performing?" "Like a dream, sir," the combat engineer replied, her eyes gleaming as she monitored the experimental weapons. The crystal matrix of their hull is responding exactly as predicted. Every harmonic we send creates microfractures that amplify the next wave. It's like watching a symphony of destruction in slow motion. On the main viewport, the alien vessel's previously perfect surface began to display a web of hairline cracks, each one catching and refracting starlight in new and chaotic patterns. The damage wasn't random. Every fracture followed the mathematical patterns that Rodriguez had discovered during their analysis of the crystal technology. "They're attempting to compensate," Lieutenant Commander Hayes warned, her hands flying over the strategic operations console, detecting energy surges consistent with some kind of self-repair mechanism. "They're trying to re-establish their quantum harmonics." Anderson nodded. "Just as we expected. Lieutenant Walker, begin Phase 2. "Aye, sir." Deploying Ghost Protocol. The Thermopila's electronic warfare suite kicked into high gear, flooding space with carefully crafted phantom signatures. To the Vexteri's advanced sensors, it must have looked like their single human opponent had suddenly multiplied into a dozen ships, each one executing impossible maneuvers that defied their understanding of physics. "They're taking the bait," Communications Officer Reynolds reported, monitoring the aliens' frantic transmissions. "Their command and control network is lighting up like a Christmas tree. They can't tell which signatures are real and which are electronic ghosts." The real Thermopylae used this confusion to execute a maneuver that would have been suicide against a clear-thinking opponent. The ship's chemical thrusters, technology the Vexteri had dismissed as primitive, fired in a complex sequence, sending the warship into a controlled tumble that their targeting systems couldn't track. "Position optimal," Navigation Officer Parker announced. "We're in their blind spot. Ms. Rodriguez, you have permission to light up their day." Rodriguez's grin was almost feral as she activated the ship's latest innovation, quantum resonators at full power, targeting their primary crystal nodes. Now, the space between the ships came alive with invisible forces. The Vexteri vessel's crystal structure began to sing with destructive harmonies, each note carefully calculated to stress the alien materials to their breaking point. It was an attack that used their own technology's perfection against them. "Sir," Reynolds called out, "they're broadcasting. It sounds like they're screaming." "They are," Hayes confirmed, her voice grim. "Their crystal tech isn't just their engineering. It's part of their neural interface. They're feeling every resonance wave we're sending." Anderson stood from his chair, walking to the viewport to watch the results of their attack. Sometimes the hardest lessons hurt the most. Status of their weapons. "Primary crystal matrix is destabilizing," Walker reported. "Their energy weapons are going offline one by one." They're rotating. They're going to try to run." "Let them go," Anderson ordered, his voice firm. "They've learned what they needed to learn today." The Vexteri scout ship's once perfect surface now resembled shattered glass, held together by will alone. It turned away from the Thermopylae, its movements jerky and uncoordinated, like a wounded animal seeking escape. "Send them one last message," Anderson commanded. "Keep it simple." Reynolds nodded, transmitting their parting words in all known frequencies. "Next time, Try asking nicely. Chief Weapons Officer Robert Bobby Thompson's hands moved with practiced precision across his weapons console as the damaged Vexteri scout ship attempted to retreat. The alien vessel's crystal hull still sparkled in the starlight, but now each glitter revealed another crack in its once perfect surface. "They're charging their quantum drive," Hayes reported from her station. "Looks like they're planning a short jump to rejoin their fleet." "Not just yet," Anderson said, his voice carrying the calm authority that had earned him command of Earth's most advanced warship. "Mr. Thompson, I believe it's time to show them our glassbreaker system." Thompson's face lit up with professional pride. "Aye, sir. Glassbreakers 1 through 4 are armed and ready. Targeting solutions locked." The weapons that emerged from the Thermopila's launch tubes looked deceptively simple, standard kinetic missiles that the Vexteri's damaged sensors would dismiss as primitive projectiles. But inside each one, quantum-entangled warheads waited to demonstrate why humanity had never abandoned obsolete technology. "Missiles away," Thompson announced, initial velocity matching their defensive calculations. Now, the aliens responded exactly as expected. Their remaining active sensors detected the incoming missiles and calculated their trajectories based on standard Newtonian physics. Their point defense systems, though damaged, still maintained enough function to target such simple weapons. "They're powering up their remaining energy weapons," Walker reported, monitoring the enemy's response. "Trying to shoot down our primitive missiles." His smile showed he knew what was coming next. "Now, Mr. Thompson," Anderson ordered, "show them why we call them glassbreakers." Thompson's fingers executed the command sequence he'd practiced countless times, initiating quantum separation in 3, 2, 1. The 4 missiles suddenly split apart in mid-flight, each one spawning 3 smaller warheads. The Vexteri's targeting systems, already struggling with battle damage, now had to track 12 targets instead of 4. But the real surprise came next. "Quantum entanglement field active," Rodriguez reported from engineering. "All warheads are phase-locked and ready." The smaller warheads began to move in ways that defied conventional physics, their quantum-entangled cores allowing them to briefly exist in multiple positions simultaneously. To the Vexteri sensors, it must have looked like reality itself was breaking down around their ship. "Direct hits confirmed," Thompson called out as the warheads found their targets. All 12 impact points registering maximum resonance effect. The results were spectacular. Each warhead struck at a precisely calculated point where the crystal structure was already weakened, their quantum-entangled payloads bypassing shields that would have stopped any normal weapon. The impacts sent synchronized shock waves through the alien vessel's hull, each wave amplifying the others, through principles that the Vexteri had never considered possible. "Their secondary systems are failing," Hayes reported, her voice professional despite the amazement in her eyes. "Crystal matrix integrity down to 30% and falling. They're losing structural cohesion." Navigation specialist Amanda Dancer Parker used this moment to demonstrate why the Thermopila had earned its nickname. The human ship executed a series of maneuvers that their advanced combat simulations had sworn were impossible, dancing through space like a ghost that could ignore the laws of physics. "Enemy ship is attempting emergency protocols," Walker announced. They're actually trying to shed their outer crystal layer to save the core structure." Anderson nodded thoughtfully. "Adaptive thinking. They learn quick. I'll give them that. Stand down additional attacks. Let's see how they handle their first taste of real combat." The Vexteri vessel, now looking more like a roughly hewn piece of quartz than a sophisticated warship, finally managed to engage its quantum drive. As it disappeared into FTL, Thompson checked his final readings. "Sir," he reported with professional satisfaction, I believe we just wrote the book on how to break unbreakable ships." High Admiral Kzoth watched the battle footage for the 7th time, his 4 hearts beating in an irregular rhythm that would have alarmed the fleet's medical officers. The scout ship's recording crystals had survived, though the same could not be said for much of the vessel's original structure. Before him, the holographic display showed their perfect crystal ship being systematically taken apart by what should have been impossible technology. "Play it again," he ordered, his translator crystal unable to fully convey the complex harmonics of distress in his natural voice. "Focus on their weapons systems this time." Science Officer Xitl adjusted the playback, her own crystalline augments pulsing with agitation. "High Admiral, I must point out that we've identified 13 distinct technological approaches in this single encounter. The humans are using everything from simple chemical propulsion to advanced quantum manipulation, often simultaneously." "Impossible." Senior warfare analyst Vezkar clicked, his carapace showing stress fractures from hours of continuous analysis. "No species can master multiple tech paths simultaneously. The resource investment alone would be—" "And yet," Kzoth interrupted, gesturing at the display with all 4 arms, "we have the evidence before us. Those primitive chemical thrusters gave them maneuverability our targeting systems couldn't track. Their basic kinetic weapons contained quantum-entangled warheads that bypassed our best shields." The command chamber fell silent as the recording showed the human ship executing what the analysts had dubbed the Ghost Maneuver, a series of moves that their best combat computers still insisted were physically impossible. "Their electronic warfare capabilities," Tactical Officer Rinzar added, his voice carrying the harmonic of deep concern. "They didn't just jam our systems. They made us see what they wanted us to see. Our sensors reported multiple phantom ships, each one moving in ways that defied our understanding of space-time." Valur, the junior sensor officer who had survived the scout ship's encounter, finally spoke up. "The most disturbing aspect, High Admiral, was their efficiency. They used our own crystal technology against us, but not through imitation. They found ways to attack it that we had never even considered possible." Kzoth moved closer to the hologram, watching as the human vessel's Gilas breaker missiles split apart in their devastating dance. "Tell me about their ship's construction." Xitl brought up a new display, showing their scans of the UES Thermopyla. "It's chaotic, by our standards. Multiple layers of different materials, redundant systems using different technological bases, backup systems for their backup systems. We initially interpreted this as primitive design, but it was intentional." Kzoth finished, his mandibles clicking in growing understanding. "They built their ship to be adaptable rather than perfect. Every system has multiple fallbacks using different principles." The science officer's augments pulsed in agreement. If one approach fails, they have 3 more ready. They haven't followed the expected path of technological evolution because they refuse to abandon any path that proved useful. The High Admiral turned to face his command staff, his expression unreadable even to those who had served with him for decades. "In all our history of expansion, we have never encountered a species that could challenge our technological superiority. We assumed that our path, the refinement of crystal technology to its perfect form, was the only valid approach to advanced civilization." He gestured at the display, where the human ship was executing another impossible maneuver. "We were wrong. These humans, they don't seek perfection. They seek effectiveness, and in doing so, they've achieved something we never considered possible: true technological adaptability." The command chamber remained silent as the recording reached its end, showing their scout ship's humiliating retreat. The final message from the human vessel, "Next time, try asking nicely," hung in the air like a challenge to 1,000 years of Vexteri superiority. The hegemony's war chamber was a marvel of crystal engineering, its walls embedded with the preserved memories of 1,000 victories. Trophies from 12 conquered species cast rainbow refractions across the gathered council members. But today these symbols of triumph seemed more like warnings than celebrations. Supreme Counselor HFY, their species' highest authority, stood at the chamber center. Her crystal-enhanced form towered over the others, faceted surfaces reflecting the concerned faces of the War Council. "You mean to tell me," she said, her voice harmonics sharp with disbelief, "that a single human vessel defeated our most advanced scout ship?" High Admiral Kazoth stepped forward, his military augments pulsing with subordinate acknowledgement. "Not just defeated, Supreme Counselor. They systematically dismantled it, using technologies we had dismissed as obsolete alongside principles we thought impossible." The tactical simulation crystallized in the air between them, showing the battle from multiple angles. The Council watched in stunned silence as the human ship executed its devastating dance. "Their ship design defies all logic," War Architect Nextel declared, his technical arrays struggling to process the information. "Look at this power distribution network. They're running plasma conduits alongside chemical backup systems, quantum computer cores with silicon processors as redundancies. It's like they took every technology they ever developed and found ways to make them work together." Science Elder Myaxa raised all 4 arms in the traditional gesture of academic challenge. "But the resource cost must be astronomical. No species could maintain multiple technological paths simultaneously. The research requirements alone." "And yet they have," Kazoth interrupted, breaking protocol in his urgency. "What we saw as primitive was actually pragmatic. They don't abandon useful technology just because they found something more advanced. They layer their innovations, creating redundancy through diversity." The chamber's crystal walls pulsed with the collective anxiety of its occupants. Strategic Master Vexilon brought up a new display, showing the damage analysis of their scout ship. "Their weapons," he noted, his voice carrying harmonics of reluctant admiration. "The glassbreakers, as they called them. Simple kinetic projectiles on the surface. But inside, they combined quantum entanglement with traditional explosives in ways our scientists claimed were impossible. And their electronic warfare," another council member added. "They didn't just jam our systems, they made us see phantom ships that moved in ways that violated physics itself." Supreme Counselor HFY raised a hand for silence, her crystal augments glowing with intense thought. "Show me their ship's core design again." The hologram shifted, revealing the layered construction of the UES Thermopyla. What had initially looked like chaos now revealed itself as a complex symphony of interconnected systems. "I begin to understand," she said slowly. "We built our empire on the pursuit of perfection. Each innovation replaced what came before, creating a single, flawless system. But these humans, they embrace imperfection," Kazoth finished. "They keep everything that works, finding ways to make different technologies support each other. Their strength isn't in having the most advanced systems, it's in having the most adaptable ones." The War Council chamber, with its 1,000 years of military history encoded in its crystal walls, had never felt more silent. The implications were staggering, not just for this conflict, but for the entire Vexteri approach to technological development. "We face a choice," Supreme Counselor HFY finally declared. "We can either learn from this encounter, or we can cling to our beliefs about technological superiority. One path leads to growth, the other," she gestured at the battle footage still playing above them, "the other leads to more broken ships." The Vexteri battle group emerged from quantum space like a constellation of angry stars, 30 crystal ships moving in perfect formation. Their hulls had been reinforced with new resonance dampeners, their shields modified to counter the humans' previous tactics. High Commander Vexilon had spent 3 days preparing his fleet for this decisive strike. What he found waiting for him made all 4 hearts skip a beat. 5 human vessels detected, his sensor officer reported, voice harmonics trembling. They're all different, sir. The UES Thermopylae led the formation, its now famous profile a warning of what was to come. But its sister ships each bore distinct signatures that defied the Vexteri's understanding of fleet doctrine. Captain Anderson's voice crackled across the command channel of the human battle group. "Remember, everyone, we're making history today. Captain Mitchell, your Spartacus has point." The UES Spartacus surged forward, its experimental plasma shield technology creating a corona of artificial lightning around its hull. Captain Rachel Havoc Mitchell's voice was steel and thunder. "Time to show them why they call me Havoc." Initiating storm protocol. The space between the fleets erupted with electromagnetic distortions as the Spartacus released its first volley, a combination of traditional electronic warfare and quantum field manipulation that made their previous Ghost protocol look like a simple trick. "Commander Jackson, you're up," Anderson ordered. The UES Valley Forge, under Commander Thomas Thunderbolt Jackson's command, unleashed its own unique approach. The ship's revolutionary gravitic pulse generators created localized space-time distortions that the Crystal ship's navigation systems couldn't compensate for. "Their formation is breaking apart," Jackson reported with professional satisfaction. Moving to Phase 2. Captain David Quicksilver Martins brought the UES Normandy into position, its stealth systems making it nearly invisible even to the enhanced Vexteri sensors. Beginning precision strikes. "Let's see how they handle our new quantum torpedoes." The Normandy's weapons were unlike anything the aliens had encountered, projectiles that could exist in multiple quantum states until the moment of impact, making them virtually impossible to intercept. Captain Sarah Storm Williams and the UES Enterprise completed the human formation, its advanced point defense grid creating an impenetrable screen of counterfire that protected the entire battle group. Defense matrix active. They won't get through this time. The Vexteri fleet's perfect formation had devolved into chaos. Each human ship used different tactics, different technologies, different approaches, but all worked in perfect concert. When the Spartacus's shields showed signs of strain, the Enterprise's defense grid shifted to cover it. When the Valley Forge's gravity weapons created opportunities, the Normandy's stealth strikes exploited them. "This is impossible," High Commander Vexlon whispered, watching his superior force being systematically dismantled. Each of their ships uses different fundamental principles. The power requirements alone should. "Sir," his tactical officer interrupted. "The Thermopylae is moving." Anderson's ship had been waiting patiently, letting its battle group demonstrate their capabilities. Now it moved with purpose, its hybrid drive systems allowing it to dance through the chaos of battle like a ghost through walls. "All ships, execute Maneuver Omega," Anderson commanded. "Show them what humanity does best." The 5 human ships moved in ways that should have been impossible, their different technologies creating a symphony of destruction that no single approach could have achieved. The Vexteri's perfect crystal ships, for all their beauty and power, simply couldn't adapt fast enough to the ever-changing nature of the human attack. High Commander Vexlon watched his battle group's formation shatter completely, his tactical display a chaos of warning signals and system failures. In that moment, he finally understood. The humans hadn't won because they had better technology. They had won because they had all the technology, working together in ways his people had never imagined possible. The hegemony's grand hall of victory had never been used to record a defeat. Its crystal walls, designed to preserve the memory of triumphs, now held images that shook the foundation of Vexteri civilization. Supreme Counselor Zexvui stood before the assembled High Council, her crystalline form reflecting the changed reality their species now faced. For 1,000 years, she addressed the silent chamber. "We believe that technological progress was a single path leading to perfect crystal integration. Today, we learn that we were wrong. The holographic display showed the human battle group's victory in perfect detail. 5 ships, each using different fundamental approaches to space combat, had systematically dismantled a fleet 3 times their size. The humans call it technological evolution, High Admiral Kizoth explained, his voice carrying new harmonics of respect. Like biological evolution, they keep every adaptation that proves useful. Their ships don't just carry multiple systems. They create synergies between technologies we had considered incompatible. Science Elder Myaxa stepped forward, her arrays now reconfigured to study human engineering principles. The UEA's Thermopylae alone contains what we would consider 8 different technological epochs working in perfect harmony. When one system is countered, they simply switch to another or combine them in new ways. The display shifted to show detailed scans of each human vessel. The Spartacus with its plasma shields, the Valley Forge's gravity manipulation, the Normandy's quantum state weapons, the Enterprise's point defense grid. Each ship represented a different philosophy of space combat. Their Captain Anderson said something remarkable during the battle. Kizoth added, when asked why they maintained so many different systems, he replied, because the universe is too complex for one answer to always be right. HFY's crystal augments pulsed with deep thought. And so we face a choice. Do we cling to our belief in perfect crystal technology, or do we learn from those who have proven there are other paths to the stars? The chamber's walls shifted, now showing the aftermath of the battle. The human ships had withdrawn after their victory, leaving the damaged Vexteri fleet to limp home. But they had also transmitted complete medical data about crystal resonance trauma, helping their former enemies treat their wounded. They are not what we expected, War Architect Nextall observed. Their technology is chaos given form. Their methods defy convention. And yet, he gestured to the display showing the medical data. They show wisdom we had forgotten in our pursuit of perfection. I have drafted a new protocol, HFY announced. We will send ships again to human space, not warriors this time, but scholars. We will learn not just their technology, but their way of thinking. Perhaps in understanding their chaos, we may find a greater order than we had imagined. The council chamber hummed with harmonic agreement. On the display, the final message from the human fleet still glowed. When you're ready to talk, we'll be here. We have much to learn from each other. In the years that followed, the report of this first contact would become required reading throughout known space. Alien species would learn to fear not just human military might, but the adaptability that made it possible. The Vexteri's account became famous for its closing words. Beware the humans, not because they are strong, though they are. Not because they are advanced, though they can be. Beware them, because they never stop learning. Never discard a tool that might be useful. Never assume their way is the only way. They are evolution's children, and they have mastered the art of becoming what they need to be. They have not found the perfect path to the stars. They have found all of them, and they are still looking for more. In the end, it wasn't human weapons that changed the galaxy. It was the simple idea that progress didn't have to move in a straight line, that the path to the future could be as complex and varied as life itself.